you going for maroon or blue? Can't tell.
It's a dual
He's
tie
got a bed
today.
each way. A bed each way.
It's like welcome to Queensland to all of them. So good morning, councillors, and good morning to the Deputy Mayor on the screen, CEO and directors. The traditional custodians of this wonderful place that we call home, and in our valley, that's the Iwi people, represent a human link dating back almost 60,000 years. So when we gather as a community, we always pay our respects to the traditional custodians, elders past, present, and those emerging, and recognise their continuing connection to our land and our community. This council meeting, of course, is being streamed live, recorded and published in accordance with the council's standing orders. And welcome to our online audience. We also welcome members of the public gallery today, and draw your attention to the top right-hand corner of our screens up there, which advise you that by attending a meeting of council in the public gallery, you are consenting to your image and your voice, if you speak, being recorded and published. And we're also required to tell you that you may be subject to legal proceedings if your actions are deemed inappropriate or unacceptable. And we know they won't be. So thank you very much. And welcome. I declare open this meeting of the Mackay Regional Council. And we're all here. So the opening prayer today is Father James Isioko. Father James, it's lovely to have you at council. Please would you lead us in prayer?
Prayer for guidance and inspiration for the Mackay Regional Council. We begin the prayer in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Almighty God, you are all light. In you there is no darkness. You created the universe and all within it, and gave it to man and woman to look after. Today, the Mackay Regional Council has come to you with gratitude for the privilege you have given to them to number among those you have chosen to lead and provide service to your children and look after your land, Mackay. They are praying for your wisdom, guidance, courage, and enabling strength to carry out the mandate of providing leadership to our community. Be with them in their deliberations, Lord, and help them to be wise in the decisions they make for the good of all those who have placed their trust and confidence in them. Give the council your insight to continue to lead always with integrity, that their decisions may reflect what is right and good. Gracious God, as they serve you on this land through serving our community, bless them with good health of soul, body, and mind. Watch over their families and always keep them safe. We make these prayers through your only Son, Jesus Christ, our Lord. Amen.
Thank you, Father James. There's nobody absent on council business. No apologies. Are there any condolences? No condolences. Let's move on to the confirmation of the minutes of the meeting of the 26th of May 2021. They've been circularised. Would somebody like to move that they be adopted? Councillor Mann moves, Councillor Englert seconds. Those in favour? Any against? Motion's carried. There's no business arising that we've been advised of. No mayoral minutes today, so let's move on to 10.1 as the Audit Committee meeting of the 20th of May. The minutes of that meeting need to be confirmed today. Any questions around that? I think it's worthy of note, councillors, that we received at that Audit Committee meeting 5 separate reports from our internal audit team, which was a very significant body of work. And so I'd like to record our congratulations to the internal audit team for a number of reports that were very extensive and very professional. So if there's no questions, can I get someone to move then the adoption of the audit report? Councillor Bella moves, seconded by Councillor Hassan. Councillor Bella.
I'd just like to say that I feel that the Audit Committee is a very, very valuable institution in this council. Most systems move towards disorder if there's not continual assessment and reassessment. You don't reach a point and then stay there, you tend to decline. These internal reviews and the external bodies that we have come in and look at these things actually, while they may not advance us, they actually keep us at a standard that is very high, and with any sort of luck we will actually improve. So I find it a very valuable process.
Thanks, Councillor Bella. Speaker against? Any other speakers? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? The motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. The 10.2, the draft minutes of the Mackay Regional Council Sustainability and Environmental Advisory Committee. Any questions on this one? Somebody like Councillor May moves. Is there a seconder? Councillor Jones. Councillor May.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. So this meeting was held out at the Link Group Services. We decided to take our committee meeting out there. Jason Sharma from Link Group gave us a tour of the facility out there and the remarkable work that they're doing to have a totally off-grid manufacturing and fabrication service out there, as well as providing alternate energy solutions. So we'd like to thank Jason very much for his hospitality. We had just some updates at the council at the committee meeting. We kept it very brief, and we then went on to our material recovery facility where our manager Jason Greencourt met us there and gave the committee a tour of the facility there and the remarkable work that they do out at the Material Recovery Centre. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor May. Speaker against? Any other speakers? Councillor Jones speaking for.
Yes, thank you, Worship. I also just wanted to mention that briefly, as Councillor May mentioned, we did actually discuss the National Tree Day that Council are organising, and I just wanted to, be able to say in the live stream to our community and our residents out there that the involvement of the community in that day will be forthcoming, and look forward to the ratepayers of Mackay being involved in National Tree Day.
Great, thanks very much, Councillor Jones. Any other speakers? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? The motion is carried. Thank you. Office of the Mayor and CEO report and our correspondence and officers report. CEO.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I'd just like to have a look at the health and safety indices and just note that we're sort of hovering around those 35 incidents per month, which we're trying to move down in that downward trend. And there's one lost time injury that's carrying over from April, and a knee injury. And if you sort of look at the pattern of injuries, there is an overrepresentation of sort of knee injuries based on falls. And that's certainly a target of what we'll be looking at over the next 12 months, those musculoskeletal injuries. And as part of that, we will be looking and revisiting sort of the job risk analysis and running some programs as well on that musculoskeletal health and hopefully targeting some of those injuries that are reoccurring. In other aspects of the report, we've received government funding from the Feds of $3.9 million under their local roads and community infrastructure funding. So that was unexpected funding, but very welcome, and we'll be looking at how we apply that funding going forward. And as a region with Isaacs and Whitsundays, we work very closely on putting in for some other federal funding across the region for $10 million, which was successful. So of that, 1.5 went to Whitsundays to set up a skills centre around agriculture and aquaculture. Claremont Sale Yards upgrades for Isaac, and we received $6.2 million to help with the QUT bio facilities in the Mackay region. So those funding applications were all very successful, which is good news.
Thanks, CEO. Questions around the CEO's report? The Office of the Mayor and CEO. Councillor Bell.
I do apologise for no previous notice of these, but most of this was done late last night. due to other issues. But with the $3.9 million of funding under local roads and community infrastructure, as it was unexpected, and the figures may not be available if we can't be apprised of it now, if we can be kept updated. But I was wondering about the apportionment of it, rural versus urban. Are things like the Eaton parking situation, which is definitely affecting the livability of people out there, and things like the danger points that I've spoken about, are they things that would be looked at under this funding?
Okay, good question, CEO.
Yeah, thank you. So the way we would normally do it is we would look at that 3.9 million funding, which is open to sort of June 23, and we would look at the next prioritisations from the capital program that didn't make the budget this time round, and we'll bring those back to council. I'm not sure what the next priorities would be in that list, but as I said, that's the way we'd normally prioritise, and we'll bring that back to council.
Thank you.
Further question? No. Any further questions? Okay, would somebody like to move the adoption of the report? Councillor May moves, seconded by Councillor Mann. Councillor May.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. As you can see from the report, the safety is continuing to be a priority, and we're meeting all of our safety site inspections and almost all of our monthly action plans, which is good to see. The Council and Community Day held this month was very successful. We visited a number of the school out at Hampden there and looked at what our grant funding had been able to deliver for that school in the refurbishment of their tennis court. We also then went on to Carinya Care to have a look at what's happening out there and the funds that we made available to repair a couple of roofs on the cottages out there. And then we visited YERS, the Youth Information Referral Service, where we had update on what's happening with the local youth here in the Mackay region. I think another point to pull out of the report is the external funding that council receives, just over $28 million year to date for this financial year. So that's a great effort on the team that writes our funding applications. And as the CEO mentioned, we've managed to get an approval for an additional 4 funds there in the report: the local roads of community infrastructure. North Queensland Primary Healthcare have funded 2 pieces of work there in after our safe places for Serena Youth and Words for Wellbeing. And then it's good to see the Department of Tourism, Innovation and Sport come through with the funds for the Pioneer Valley Mountain Bike Environmental Assessment and Design work. So that's great to have that funding come through. I think also, as the CEO mentioned, the regional recovery partnership money that came from the federal government, the $5.2 million that's going to the QUT biocommodities plant out at the mill there, I think will be put to good use and very timely. So happy to put the report and adopt it.
Thank you very much, Councillor May. Speaker against? Any other speakers? No other speakers. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? The motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. 11.2.1. The Capital Works Monthly Review Report for...
No, you missed one.
Did I miss one? Oh, right. Sorry. Okay. Jumping ahead of myself. 11.1.2 then. Council attendance at the Disaster and Emergency Management Conference. And this is a fairly simple paper. Looking for approval for Councillor May and Councillor Engler to attend the 2021 Disaster and Emergency Management Conference, the Gold Coast, on 12th to the 13th of July. Any questions? No questions? Would somebody like to move the adoption? Councillor Mann moves. Councillor Bonaventura seconds. Councillor Mann. Councillor Bonaventura.
Thank you. Look, I'm happy to support this, Your Worship. And look, coming from a region that faces the risks of cyclone, floods and fires, this conference offers speakers from federal government agencies, the Australian Defence Force, Fire and Emergency Service, and many, many other important players. In fact, we will be represented as our staff deliver a case study on the person-centred emergency preparedness booklet in conjunction with the University of Sydney. So looking at the program, I would be pleased to receive reports from councillors on topics such as the disaster resilience of community organisations, sounds really interesting, and better planning equals greater results. And these are just 2 that spark my interest. So I am keen to see what councillors can bring back to share with us from this event.
Thanks.
Happy to support.
Thanks, Councillor Bonaventura. Any other speakers? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? The motion is carried unanimously. You've got a bit of a lag there, Councillor May, so I thought you were voting against that one, but you obviously spoke in favour, so thank you. Now we'll move on to Capital Works monthly review for May. And our Director, Carlos, is going to present this. I see that the capital spend is slightly below, but it's still at 97.5%, Director. That must be a big month coming up at the end of the year.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, we hope so. That's for sure.
Whoa.
You're not going to answer that?
Whoa.
Happy,
Sorry, Director.
That's okay. Happy to report no LTIs. Oh, sorry, one LTI was in the month. That was a minor incident with one of the staff members slipping and actually doing some damage to knee, and that ended up being a bit more severe than we originally thought. We thought originally it was quite a minor incident, so that's unfortunate for the program. As you mentioned, year-to-date spend is at 74 million. Our forecast is in the 90s, so it would be a big final June. But of course, some of those variations in June will include some contingency and savings from projects, and we hope not, but probably some works that continue to push out into next financial year. We have, however, had a good May. You'll see from the list there are 20 completed projects, which is up from the previous couple of months. So that's a sign that we're headed in the right direction. And 48, I'll draw your attention to, I suppose, some of the reasons, again, why we're continuing to have slippage. And the big one there is the plant and equipment replacement program. Nearly $750,000. We're having ongoing delays with delivery of truck bodies and other infrastructure associated with our plant and equipment. That's really been an issue for us for well over 12 months now, and certainly since COVID started. A couple of other projects there, you'll notice a little bit of weather delay and some issues on site with unsuitable material that have led to those delays. So on page 49, though, we do have a few contracts, quite significant key contracts that have been awarded in the month, and that certainly won't be translated into significant spend in June, but holds us in good stead for the contracts we're awarding for the next financial year. So happy to.
Thanks, Director. Questions for the Director? Councillor Seymour.
This time. I've just got a question, two questions actually. One on the Mackay Animal Pound facility. Is there going to be an overspend on the project because of the works? And also, should there be more detailed site classifications for these jobs?
Okay, Director, can you answer that?
Yeah, at this stage we're not projecting an overspend. Some of the issues that you've read about in the report that have been picked up have really been issues that the contractor have been dealing with. There has been a few variations, but we're dealing with them within the project budget. And your answer, the answer to the question about site investigations is a good one. It's a poor quality site substrate, and so it's always a balancing act between the amount of site investigations you do and how much detail you go into that versus what you deal with once you get on site. And in this case, we were confident that the consultants who did the design had that in hand. We did what was on the drawings essentially and had that signed off, but we still found movement in the base that was going under the slab. So we had to go back to the drawing board, and from time to time that happens. It certainly doesn't happen a lot, but in this case it did with that particular site.
Thanks, Director. Okay. Further questions? Councillor Bella?
My question is not so much about capital delivery, but one of the items within it, and it may need to be taken on notice. It's not necessarily the Director's province, but regarding the Fifth Lane redevelopment in an attempt to revitalise the city centre, other laneway systems that I've seen, including Melbourne, work because many of the businesses there have entries off that lane. My concern is, and the question is, have we done an investigation as to whether doing up Fifth Lane is actually taking foot traffic away from Victoria Street and those business frontages there? Because I do have a concern that it is a shortcut between two streets. it's visually appealing, especially to younger children. And younger children are one of the drivers of impulse buying by parents, that sort of thing. And I kind of wonder whether, in the attempt to revitalise our city centre, we're actually drawing away from the actual very heart of the city. So I'm just wondering whether we've done any work, and I'm willing to...
So, Councillor Vella, that's probably not within the realms of the capital works. It
As I
may
said,
be
yeah.
more in Director Nugent's area, and we'll ask Director Nugent to report back to the next meeting of council, taking that on notice.
Yeah, thank you, Worship. Would you like me to, do that formally to the next council meeting?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, are there any further questions? Councillor England, sorry.
Thank you, Worship. Just a curiosity about where the on-site pre-start meeting was in which the dog attacked and latched onto our staff. Is it, like, so that was a public space or was it private property?
Director.
Sorry, the
Dog latched onto one of our staff?
Yeah, might have to take that one on notice. So.
Okay,
Okay, cool.
thank you. Any further questions, Councillor Bonaventura?
Just as you stated at the start of at the start of the director's presentation, with capital works being at 68.4% at the end of May, does the director believe we will achieve the remaining 31.6% by the end of June?
Director.
That's 68 is of the original budget.
Of the original budget, it's 97% of this current, of the revised budget.
Okay. Thank you.
But the question is still valid. I mean, we've still got a lot of money to expend.
We've got a lot of money to expend. That's all I just wanted to ask.
I guess the question, Director, is what's your forecast for the end of the month?
The forecast that's in this document is at 97 million, not the budget. So it's not the original budget, but as we've previously reported, our forecast capital expenditure for the end of the year is at 97. However, that was actually taken at the end of May. The current figures are about 91.6.
Yeah.
That the forecast is to complete the capital budget for this year.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry for the mistake, but it does say in the report we are at 68.4% delivered against the 2021 amended budget.
Yeah, so that's correct. That's against the budget, not against that forecast to complete.
Yeah. So we still got a lot of money to expend though.
All right. Councillor Bonaventura.
Further question, just under contract services, I just note, will stage 2 and 3 of the C4 or Yakatari C4 shared path include that little bit of bitumen sealing of the 60 metres of gravel road just outside the C4 State School? Is that part of what's being planned there?
Not as part of what the contractor has currently to do, because of course they're moving towards C4.
Yeah.
So the little bit there, I think we discussed we would take that out of there and put it into one of the bitumen.
Into the maintenance resale programs, yeah. I think that was what the discussion
so we did say we commit to looking at it, and we've given that back to Transport and Drainage to have a look at along the program.
Thank you.
Anything further? Nothing further? Would somebody like to move the report's adoption? Councillor Jones moves, Councillor England seconds, Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you for the report from the Director. I guess the one that I want to highlight within the Capital Works program is on page 51 under Design Services. And I'd like to just give a shout out to some of our quiet achievers in our organisation, and that would be the survey team, who are a very small band of merry men and women, because we have women in there too, but obviously a very integral part of our organisation. So they achieved 16 surveys for the month. Some of the ones that the community will be familiar with would be the additional surveys required for the mountain bike track and of course the Northern Beaches Community Hub. But I just wanted to say a job well done to the team. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Jones. Speaker against? Any other speakers? Councillor England speaking for.
Thank you, Worship. As the Director said, over 20 projects completed for the month, a couple of those being Gargot Bore number 1 and 2 renewal, the Pioneer River Estuary Fish Habitat Improvement Program, the repairs to the Pioneer Levee. The Director also mentioned there are several variances, predominantly as a result of contractor delays and wet weather, and he's assured us that that's all under control. Key contracts approved for the month of May, total $11 million. And a couple of standouts are the CCTV and solar lighting for boat ramps and car at boat ramps, $744,000, and the Bedford Road water main replacement at nearly $600,000. The Portfolio Management Office has been working closely with asset management to introduce more defined processes to close out projects in a timely manner. We've had discussions at length within council about that, so that's really good to see that they're on top of that. The Caping Road Bloomsbury Bridge replacement was completed and opened on the 4th of May, and the feedback from the residents are they're very pleased with the outcome. It was a timber bridge, it's been raised by 800 millimetres, but that will significantly increase the amount of use time for the bridge in wet weather events. Kamala Water quality upgrade, the new treatment plant at Kamala near the Water Tower Road is at the stage where civil works has been completed on site to establish through the bulk earthworks. Yakberry Seaforth Road, we just mentioned about the footpath there in discussion, and stage 2 is currently being handled by the contractor. And to finish off the River Estuary Fish Habitat Improvement Program, that's been practically completed. Very interesting project, as discussed previously, Mayor. We put some habitat out into the Pioneer River within a castable distance of some of our favourite fishing spots to increase the amount of fish one might trick into biting that worm. So all over a good report, and I recommend it.
Thanks, Councillor England. Are there any other speakers? Councillor Bonaventura speaking for.
Yes, Your Worship. Just quickly, I noticed on 7.2, the Milton Alfred Street signalised intersection. They're right at the showgrounds. And I know there's been some delays, but I do assume it's going to be ready for the show day, because it would be a bit disappointing if it's not, but I assume it's going to be up and running by then, so that's great. Be a great intersection when it's done.
I think that's the project. Yes, it has been going on for some time, but there's a lot of work to do down there, and the rebuilding of that intersection has been a big job. So, and thank you very much, councillors. It just shows your highlight of all that's going on, backing up what the director has said. So certainly a busy area of our operations. Thanks very much. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? The motion's carried. Thank you. Community and Client Services monthly review for May. Director Hayes.
Thank you, Your Worship. So May was a really busy month across the Community and Client Services Directorate, and I'd like to draw your attention to just a few of the highlights. So the Met and Events team were exceptionally busy and delivered more than 30 events across the month. One of these, of course, included the Mayor's Charity Ball, which returned with a vengeance this year after a postponement in 2020, attracting record attendance of 422 guests. The ball also raised a record amount for charity, with more than $100,000 now being split between Mackay Women's Services and Heart Kids Mackay. Also returning after a year off, the Volunteers Expo was held in May at the Showgrounds. We had our highest ever stallholder participation with 51, providing information and services to the 800 people who attended. The first ever party in the park was held in the Civic Precinct as well during May, and this was held to connect new, isolated or disconnected parents and carers with a range of support services and organisations that are available to them across the region. Now, the inaugural event attracted around 700 people with very positive feedback. Our emergency management team and Mackay SES also participated in the Emergency Service Day at Harrop Park. Around 6,000 people attended this across the day, learning about what emergency services do for our community and how they can be personally prepared. Our development compliance officers also hosted a stall at the Mackay Expo held at the Showgrounds, and this was to help with our pool safety campaign. So they actually interacted with and provided valuable education and feedback to people who are interested in how to keep their pools safe and the small kids in our community safe. During May, round 3 of our community grants program also saw over $180,000 distributed to 25 local community not-for-profit organisations. And lastly, during the month, we did our second round of the COVID-19 Community Pulse Survey for our community. So that was 12 months on from the first one, and that will give us a really good snapshot of how our community is faring at this point in time, being that 1 year later. Now, we should have the report available to everyone again now within a month. I look forward to providing that at a later date. I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you, Director. Questions for the Director, Councillor Mann.
So I've got two. First one is our staff members that were verbally abused. Are they okay?
Director.
Yeah, thank you. It's never a nice thing to experience, and we put all the necessary support around them. We removed them from the floor for a period to allow them an opportunity to regroup and make sure our EAP is off at the time.
Second one.
And the other one is around the survey. and it just says a snapshot of Mackay community. I just wanted to know if it was the region, a snapshot of the region, rather than just Mackay Centre.
Okay, Director.
Absolutely, yes. Full span of our region is covered.
Thank you.
Further questions? Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Worship. On page 106, the community engagement list is there. And I note that the footpath trading permit issue has been discussed one-on-one with the business owners. So I'm wanting to know, are we now going to engage with disability advocates and the general public one-on-one to get their views before the finalisation of the community engagement report?
Director.
Yes, thank you. That has also been done. Apologies for not noting it in the reports. We have engaged with disability advocacy groups and our Access and Inclusion Committee as well.
Oh, thank you.
Councillor Bell. Oh, sorry, did you have
Sorry, I did have a second one. Page 120, the Eat Safe program. I'm just wondering whether or not you're able to tell me, and take it on notice if you can, if there is a percentage of the 5-star businesses that, you know, doing that good work, that say after 6 months or so start dropping off and become a lower rating.
I'd need to take that on notice. I'm sure that does occasionally occur. However, most of the businesses that do achieve that 5 stars, they achieve it because of the level of reporting. So that's the step up. It's not necessarily the food safety practices, it's how they report and manage. And once that's embedded, that doesn't tend to drop off.
Okay, cool. Thank you. That's all your question.
Thank you. Councillor Bell.
I also would like to ask a couple of questions. Regarding our dog registrations, can we get a rough idea of what percentage of dogs are registered and how many we think are out there that are unregistered? Because it is, and I will speak a bit later on it, I think it's one of the greatest points of contention within the community, dog-related complaints.
Director, can you answer that?
I could not. I'm not sure that my team would be able to either. I'm not sure how we would know how many animals there are in the region that aren't registered. And obviously we know what are registered, but it would be, I would say, an educated guess at best if we were to put forward a number.
I just remember in the last term we were given an approximate. I'm not sure how we gained that, if it is at all possible.
It was a guess, that one. I think it was based on the number of turned up unregistered at the pound at the time and extrapolating that.
Yeah, I think it would be good to know at this point. My other question is that it's from the other end regarding the stars. I'm a fan of the whole thing. When you look at it though, our 0 or 2 stars, we don't have a 1 star there. There's 24 businesses, or 3%, in what I term a parlous state. So I've got a couple of sort of questions relating to this. Like, what sort of time frame have they been in that state? Or is it just a sudden decline or whatever? And how quickly or what time frame do we give them to pick up? Because from my point of view, it's like the old risk matrix. While the number is very low, the implications of them being that low are actually very serious from my point of view.
Director, can...
Absolutely, yeah, I can answer that one. I can't tell you specifically how many of those businesses are new to that list or have been on there from a previous month, but they're not allowed to linger on the list. So anyone that achieves a 2 or a 0 star rating, 0 stars are actually not allowed to continue operating, and the 2 stars are giving an improvement notice. So that must be, improvements must be met within a very specific time period, or else there is further enforcement action that's taken, which may include closing the business. So they are given parameters to work towards. The exact time varies depending upon the nature of the improvement that's required.
Thank you.
Okay. Further questions? Councillor Bonaventura.
I just think on page 87, there's a graph on the library visitors table, but I can find nothing there to reference our 2021 numbers. I don't know whether it's a typo or whether the graph comes from last year.
Sorry, what page was that, Councillor?
87, the second graph, library visitors table, and I can't see anything that says 2021. So I don't know whether that was supposed to not have it, or everything else on that page, there's always a 2021 version.
Yeah, my apologies. I had actually stopped presenting that graph, so that's in there in error.
Okay, so that graph won't be shown again.
No, and it isn't normally.
Okay, all right. Happy to see it drop out then. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. Any further questions? No further questions?
Yeah, excuse me, Mr Mayor, could I just ask one question?
You can ask a question, councillor. I have
Thank you.
to keep looking.
So just in relation to the star ratings, and we seem to have a number of questions regarding that when this report comes to council. I'm just wondering whether a briefing could be provided to council, because I having been a business owner in the food industry, know that the assessment is very comprehensive, but I think it'd be useful to give councillors a briefing just to get an understanding of what is actually undertaken in an assessment of a food licence business.
Thanks, Councillor May. The CEO is nodding his head, so that'll be approved. So the briefing will come to council as soon as it can be arranged.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Somebody like to move the report's adoption? Councillor Townsend moves. Councillor Jones seconds. Councillor Townsend.
Thank you, Your Worship. As our director said, May was jam-packed with lots and lots of activities that suited any age, any interest. There was something for everyone, and the community were very, very supportive of everything that we offered, and indeed some extra programs are being looked at to be delivered again at a later date. The director has highlighted some of the things that I had in here, so I'll sidestep them. But I would like to highlight Serena Candle Lighting Ceremony, which included a remembrance walk held on May 6th to commemorate victims of domestic violence. I wanted to highlight a wonderful program that's been developed to upskill dance teachers and our aged care providers in our community. It's called Gold Moves, and it's to develop training opportunities, as I said, but mainly working with our aged in the community. Positive feedback was provided, and they're actually looking at 2 more professional sessions to be held in July, so that was very well attended and supported. Mackay Toastmasters developed a workshop as an introduction to public speaking, which saw 18 people attend. Community grants, as our director said, a great total of money was given out to our recipients. 4 small equipment grants, 15 community grants, and 6 minor asset grants. So these will help our small sporting clubs, volunteer organisations and community groups who provide vital services and often struggle with finances to continue the great work and services they provide. I'd just like to also highlight a few things that our libraries are doing. They've got some great programs in there, and they're always well attended and in fact growing in numbers each week. And there is a fantastic program which has been designed for residents who live with disabilities, impairments, autism spectrum disorder, learning cognitive disabilities and motor disabilities. And this All Abilities program includes sensory exploration, book club, storytelling for grown-ups. It's a wonderful program, and it not only increases our participants' knowledge of our library service, but it also assists in gaining social connections and wellbeing benefits. So I was really excited to see that included in some of the programs at our library. I did attend the official opening of Tamworth Textile Triennial at Artspace on the 28th of May. That was very well attended, and we saw over 100 enthusiastic people attend on the night. Our very own Mackay-based artist Donna Marie Robinson, she teamed up with Mackay-raised composer David Pike, and this was pretty fantastic to watch. Councillor Haslam and I took a seat in that little space, and there is sound vibrations, science, creation of music. It was pretty spectacular, and I'd really like to recommend that our public go along and experience that, because this is from our locals here. We've got so much talent. So everyone has to agree, it's jam-packed, and of course the Mayor's Ball, as our director said, was a huge success. I was involved in the ball for quite a number of years, so for me to see it go off so well, and 422 persons being there, and the money raised going to 2 very worthwhile local charities, Domestic Violence Service and Heart Kids. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Townsend. Speaker against? Any other speakers? Councillor Jones, speaking.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just also wanted to note on page 77, under Sports and Recreation, the Clubs Connect has been a brainchild of our staff, and I'm really proud of this amazing tool that we are able to offer our community organisations to help them run their organisations. As the Secretary of Mackay Rec Fishers Alliance, I just see the benefit wholly and solely of this tool, and I've certainly signed up for it. I can't wait to start using all the features that it has to offer. And yeah, I just think it was a great initiative of our staff. The other one is on page 105, under community engagement. There were 31 areas of engagement that have occurred through the month of May. 22 of them were on the Connecting Mackay page. And just to note that 9 of them have actually been engagement for the Pioneer Valley area. So just to highlight, we have a lot happening in the Pioneer Valley area at the moment, and I'm sure that our residents up that way would be very happy with that. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thanks, Councillor Jones. Councillor Bella speaking for.
I've got a number of things I'd like to, under 2 topics. The first of all, dog registration. First of all, I'd like to commend our staff on their proactive patrols. I would love to see some reporting on our more passive problems as such, where people are complaining about dog-related incidents, barking dogs, dangerous dogs, and all of that, reported on in the report. Anecdotally, I feel that there are far more dog misbehaviours with unregistered animals, owners that don't really care, and I feel it's time to bring this up, because yesterday there was a lady who visited a friend of hers. The friend was babysitting a couple of dogs, and she was killed by those 2 dogs down south there. So I feel that it's something that we really need to stay on top of. We have in the past had actions where we've tried to enhance things with dumping, with bin vouchers, and we've done it with registrations. I feel we should do it again. I have seen where in the past, just to make it easier on people to do the right thing, where they have a situation where they have basically a doggy pension, so a dog that's been registered for a period of years, 8 years, 10 years or whatever. The registration continues until the sad passing of the dog, but the actual registration for that dog is free. So reward the ones that do the right thing, and I'm not in favour, as Councillor Bonaventura and I have said, on we want people to register. We don't necessarily want to make it hard for them to do so. The other thing I'd really like to highlight is our vector control crew. When you look at the amount of work they did, it was 230 something hectares done, and I don't think people realise just how much area that is, and 2, the conditions that they've got to do it in. It's not lovely flat ground like a football oval or something like that. It's generally the crappiest country you'd run across, with a very high degree of being attacked by the very animals that you're trying to control, mosquitoes, sandflies and all of that sort of thing. So my congratulations goes to them. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Councillor Bella. Other speakers? Okay, we've got a couple. Councillor Bonaventura.
Thank you. Firstly, in agreeing with Councillor Bella in relation to registration of dogs, can I say personally I am disappointed that we have reduced the discount period from 2 months back to 1 month. So I think, as Councillor Bella said, we need to get every opportunity to get those dogs registered where possible, and it does disappoint me. But that's not what I rose to speak about. I just want to pass on my thanks through the Director to the Development and Compliance team who attended the Mackay Expo for that 3 days at the showgrounds as part of that pool safety campaign. The team interaction with residents was appreciated, and I think it goes a long way to telling residents the responsibilities they have in keeping, in relation to pool safety. So can I get the Director to pass on my congratulations to them for their efforts? Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Bonaventura. Councillor Mann.
Thank you, Worship. Look, just in relation to dog registrations, I'll have a say as well. I have 2 animals that I register. I find that the period to actually pay the registration is more than adequate. If you have a dog that is fixed, it's very, very affordable. So I have no issue with that. But I wanted to highlight safety, no LTIs, but very, very disappointing that 2 of the incidents were verbal abuse against our staff. I just find that appalling that people think that's okay. Our staff deserve to be safe at work and go home safely. So I just hope that people take notice that it's not something that we take lightly and not something that we are comfortable with. Round 3 of RADF closed on 5th of May. We had a lot of applications, and it was really good to see that applications from people that hadn't applied before. So the word is getting out there, and we're going to try and track how people are finding out about that as well. And in terms of the COVID-19 community impact survey, I think that's really important to see how we're going 12 months on, and it helps inform us as to whether or not there's anything else that we need to do to support our residents.
Thanks very much, Councillor Mann. Any other speakers? Councillor Green.
Thank you. Just to follow up on the Clubs Connect launch on page 77, Liz and Linda, our sport and recreation officers who have been the brainchild behind all of this, have been doing an incredible amount of work delivering workshops to our region, and I've joined them for a couple of these workshops to hear the feedback that's been given. And I'm really pleased to update that from the 22 clubs mentioned in the report, they now have 33 clubs as of 2 days ago signed up. They're well on their way, and that's just in over 1 month since the launch. They're well in their way of hitting their target of 60 in 3 months. So this is a win-win on both sides of the fence. The clubs are getting access to great governance platform, but for council, we have the most up-to-date database that we've had in a very long time regarding our sport and recreation clubs. So we're now able to get out the information that we would like to get to our clubs to the right people. They're not outdated executive members or outdated emails that these are going to. So it's a fantastic program. The Modern Management Toolkit provides resources for volunteers who often have no idea how to run an AGM, let alone take the minutes and what to do with that. It gives them the management and the resources to best govern their organisations. It then also gives them the club locker room facility of where they can store those documents into perpetuity. So the incoming or transition of the new executive can now find those documents. They're not in somebody's garage 3 years ago. So a fantastic resource that we really should be plugging to all of our organisations across the region. So well done to our staff. Anyone that's interested, that's hearing this and would like to get in touch, please do, and they will come and talk to your organisation one-on-one and help you register.
Thank you very much, Councillor Green. Any other speakers? No other speakers? We'll ask from that discussion, we'll ask the CEO to make a note for next year's budget discussions around fees and charges on the doggy pension. All right, so if there's no further discussion, Councillor May, you right? Yep. Okay. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? The motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. 11.4.1 is the Engineering and Commercial Infrastructure Report on the Pathway Connectivity Program for cluster housing, and this is asking us to adopt a review of the cluster housing facility infrastructure improvement requests as have come to council. It's a fairly extensive report. I'll get the director. Are you able to speak to this report before we ask for questions?
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. So obviously we've had a strong focus on access around our pathways and around programs before around our schools and aged care. So cluster housing was another issue that came up. So this is a further review and some recommendations around existing pavements to maintain those, and then obviously some further new works around those areas to improve accessibility.
Okay, thanks, Director. Questions for the Director? Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have 3 questions. First of all, is this going to be stage 1 and do we have other areas to look at down the track, or is this just it for this?
Director? You don't need to stand up, James. You're right.
Worship. So no, there's no provision or at the moment to look at any further. So this is the cluster housing that was investigated as part of the, I suppose, follow-up briefing of council.
Okay. Question 2. As there is no money in the 21 budget, is this recommendation to move ahead with the business case design and construct within 3 years? You know how we talk about doing that? Is that what this is for?
Director.
Yeah, again, through your worship, yeah. So this would be formal approval. So as a result of this, we would move to concept development to go and get an approval, which would then go to detailed design and delivery. There may be some flexibility around that about timing of works, and we can bring stuff forward depending on where it is once it's been designed.
Okay. And number 3, I note that we are approving 4, I won't say 4 places, but 4 areas, 4 streets, 4 locations that are in the recommendation, and that the total cost is going to be $558,000 to actually assist 107 households. I note that they are all owned by Queensland Housing. So I'm asking why the state are not providing funds to assist us with this. I know that some legacy issues. I know that some of the properties are very old, and maybe back then as part of developments, footpaths aren't required, but I know that that's what we require now when we pretty much get a development to be approved. They have to put in even, you know, their bit of footpath. So I note that in the last 10 years, Milton Street's been one of those that's been, you know, refurbed or rehashed, and there's no footpath was constructed in the last 10 years in front of that. So I know that we make developers do it. Why do we not make state do it? And is there a way that we can ask the state to fund some of this?
So that's your question. Right, okay, thank you.
Yeah, through your worship. So we haven't directly gone back to this state government agency. I mean, the state government probably argue that they already give funding for path access through different programs that we can access. And traditionally we've done that for new footpaths, but obviously that are linked to the principal cycle network. So these pathways won't fit that criteria to be eligible for the funding, but hence we go back to the State Department program and ask and have some discussion around work.
And they may well, this will be a future capital works program development, so it'll be future budget. And they may well come back to us and say we'll do it out of Works for Queensland.
So just to add then, is it possible then, or can we not do it, where we actually say if there was a block of land next door and they were state were going to put another cluster housing there, are they obliged to actually put a strip of concrete in the front, or are they different to other developers?
Director.
Very good question, Your Worship, and I'll deflect to my fellow director around what the approval would be around depending on what the state agency is and what we can condition them.
Director of Planning.
Sorry, can you please repeat that question?
So just if a state development area wants to develop, can we still condition them about footpath access if there's an approval process?
Yes, if there's an approval process, but it depends. It depends on the nature of the development. It depends if they've got a community infrastructure designation. So there's opportunities for a state department to be able to do the works without needing to go through an approval process.
And that's what we face all the time.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Bella.
I've always had a focus on prioritisation, but in our assessment of these ones that we're going to do, did we actually look at the age demographic within these clusters? Did that have any bearing on whether we construct the footpath in that region? For the simple fact that, you know, the older, the less physically able people are, the more likelihood they are of trips, slips, falls, and the more likelihood that there is usage of walking frames and such like. So I'm just wondering whether that was part of our assessment process. The other thing is, as we're only doing a certain number and there's others down the track, are we going to assess the usage of the pathways we provide? Like whether they're actually being fully used, whether the money we've spent is actually going towards a recognisable outcome rather than purely an aesthetic outcome.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Bella. So an age demographic question first, Director.
Thank you, Worship. No, not to my knowledge. I don't think we have any access to that data to be able to work out the age profile of any of those locations. And to your second question, I think it's a good point, but very difficult to measure how you're going to measure the success of a pathway in relation to numbers. So we don't have any way of actually measuring any data around that at present. As technology continues to develop, there might be new ways to be able to measure that, but you'll need to look at what the measurement is in relation to. Is it just the number of people? Is it accessibility? So.
Okay. Further questions?
No, thank you.
No further questions? All right, well, as I said, it's a fairly extensive report and well written too. So if somebody like to move then the report's adoption. Councillor Jones moves the report's adoption. Councillor Mann seconds. Councillor Jones.
As you said, Your Worship, I think it's fairly thorough as a report.
Well, the speakers. I'll put the motion then. Those in favour? Any against? The motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. 11.5.1, the fees and charges 2021 to 2022. Director, would you like to speak to this at all? It's fairly well straightforward.
Yes.
Okay, and we've had briefings on the same. Are there any questions? No questions? Would somebody like to move then the report's adoption? Councillor Jones moves. Councillor Green seconds. Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just want to take the opportunity of the live stream to note on page 155 the fees and charges. So I just wanted our ratepayers to understand that rates from ratepayers are never enough to run council as a whole. Sure, we've got a lot to maintain, but fees and charges are just another way that we can get revenue to cover some of the costs at a more user pay level. The fees and that we are approving today will be set in concrete for the next 12 months, and we'll apply these fees so that people who don't use certain services don't have to pay for those that do. So I'll just give you a quick example. I don't use the pools or the stadium, but I know that these are great assets for our community, so council makes sure that there's something for everyone. And in saying that, I'd also like to remind our ratepayers that we still provide free entry into the Blue Water Lagoon and our libraries. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thanks, Councillor Jones. Speaker against? Any other speakers? Councillor Bonaventura?
Yeah, I'll just say a few words. Just to sum up, basically, look, the majority of fees and charges have increased by 2%, should I say, and this was a standard increase applied over the majority of fees. Although some fees remained unchanged for a variety of reasons, including where the higher rates have not increased to maintain and attract hirers, or where the fee is commercially competitive and an increase is not recommended, or industry standard fees, or in case of cost recovery, the fees of the delivery is equal to the current fee charge, so we didn't put them up. And some fees have been removed, either where they are unlikely to ever be received, or where they have been incorporated into another fee, or there are duplication of an existing fee, or the service is no longer provided. I think we need to remember, Your Worship, that we adopted a zero increase to help reduce the effects of COVID to our ratepayers last year. So overall, a good result, and I'm happy to support it.
Thanks, Councillor Bonaventura. Are there any other speakers? No other speakers. Councillor May, speaking for.
Yes, thank you very much, Your Worship. I just wanted to add to that yes, we did have a 0% increase last year. We even gave some fee relief last year with our COVID recovery process for our small business owners and people that were in need. I think it is really, really important. I mean, it's this difficult time of the year when we're doing fees and charges, we're looking at budgets and making sure that this council stays financially sustainable. We must continue to raise the revenue that's required to operate the council. A 2% increase in fees and charges, and as my fellow councillors have outlined, not all fees and charges are going up that 2%. Some are not going up at all. Some are less. But overall, I think the priority here needs to be for council to make sure that we continue to raise enough revenue to provide the services that people in our community are requiring. And fees and charges is part of that way that we raise that revenue. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor May. No other speakers? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? The motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. 11.5.2, the renaming of Brooks Road West in Serena. Director, is there anything that needs to be said to this report? It's a fairly straightforward report. We know what the intention is. Is there anything further that you want to add?
Just in the consultation, we did consult with Serena and Museum, but they were not in favour of the name change. The report is a bit ambiguous on that point, so I just wanted to clear that for the record.
Right, okay, are there questions? Any questions? Okay, would somebody like to move then the report's adoption? Councillor May moves, Councillor Bella seconds. Councillor May.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. This is great to see this report come to Council. The resident there had raised this issue with me and I on-forwarded that to our councillor support team, and consequently the investigations were undertaken. This particular street, there's only 6 businesses, residents that are in this particular part of Brooks's Road West, which is the current name. And the most concerning part is the calling of emergency services. And you could put into your maps and put in 3 Brooks's Road West, and it will take you to Brooks's Road. So that is a real concern for the residents there. And the gentleman that spoke with me had the occasion to call an ambulance, and this has raised this concern. So this is a great outcome for the residents there. It is a great outcome for our emergency services to be able to get to the right people within the shorter time frames. And I think to be able to name the street after fallen soldiers that has a great connection to the Serena community is something that is a really good outcome.
Thanks, Councillor May. Speaker against? Any other speakers? Councillor Bella speaking for.
Look, I do think this is a very good outcome, and I understand, having links with ambulance and police, that there are a number of problems with certain things like this. And I think this is a good segue into maybe looking at our region overall, because there are a number of situations like this, and I understand where eventually the 2 ends of the road will be joined, but I feel that there are areas where they will never, due to development, become the one road. And it's probably something we should look at, not as a matter of urgency, but I think it has a great deal of importance, so there's no ambiguity, and ultimately someone doesn't suffer just because we haven't looked at it. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Bella. Are there any other speakers? Up for the motion, those in favour? Any against? Motion's carried. Thank you. Carried unanimously. Thank you. All right. Receipt of petitions. 12.1 is a petition for the against the proposed telecommunications tower at Gillam's Park at Antigrove. I think that's fairly well straightforward. We have only 3 options we can do with petitions that come to council, and the officer's recommendation on this one that be received, refer to the CEO, and a report be prepared for presentation to council. Somebody like to move? Councillor Mann moves. Councillor Townsend seconds. There's nothing we can really say on this one. You can't debate on this, so I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? Motion's carried. Thank you. And no tenders, no notified motions, public participation. Mr. Begg, nobody wishes to speak by the looks of it. No? Okay. Right, there's nobody in the public gallery wishing to speak. Late business, councillors. Any late business? Councillor England.
Thank you, Worship. Yourself and a number of councillors attended the Mackay District Mountain Bike Cup the weekend before last. I just wanted to make mention of the significance of that event for this region. It is the only event this year that's held UCI points. They're very desirable in the lead up to World Championships and Olympics, which yielded a significant contingent from New Zealand, including the high performance coach of New Zealand and 11 riders to come to our region and to participate in this event. And it's also the first event that's been live streamed this year as well. So there's been a lot of interest online. Unfortunately, we were expecting up to 150 competitors. 90 showed up, and we believe it's due to the COVID issues down south, which is a shame. Fortunately, though, the majority, if not all, of the races were won by the Australians, and the Kiwis came second and third a couple of times. But I just wanted to make point how this is important to the region by just mentioning the Mackay District Mountain Bike Club in particular, who set up and managed the event, and more specifically, Mr. Ian Masters, the brains behind the Pioneer Valley Mountain Bike project. who in his own time and spending his own money has become a track builder and a commissaire for mountain bike racing, which is why we're able to hold such quality events in the region today. He's got a great reputation in Australia now for managing these events. The Mackay region has a great reputation now, and this will instead put us in good stead for our experience and reputation in the lead up to us finalising our mountain biking facilities in the Pioneer Valley, with the hope of through having a excellent record in delivering events that we might take advantage of other economic opportunities in the future.
Thanks, Councillor Ingot. It certainly was a very good weekend, and one of the elite Kiwi riders was explaining his second place by how hot it was in Mackay at that stage. I actually had a jacket on, so it's very good. Any further late business? No further late business?
Oh, just one point, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor May.
I just wanted to raise the Mackay show. As we know, the Mackay show is coming up and the holiday is on the 17th of June. As we all know, there was no show last year due to COVID. So I just want to encourage people to go along and support the Mackay show. We've got the information booth there from council with a number of different areas of council being showcased. And of course, the Art on Show exhibition as well, along with all of the agricultural and stall holders there. So hopefully the weather is great and the Mackay region really get on and support the Mackay show.
Thank you very much, Councillor May. There's no further late business. We have one confidential report to consider. We've had a briefing on this. Does anybody require us to go into a closed session to consider this? Okay, so the confidential report is the sale of land for the arrear of rates. Would somebody like to move the report's adoption? Councillor Mann moves, Councillor Englert seconds. Those in favour? Any against? The motion is carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Thank you, CEO. Thank you, directors. I declare the meeting closed.
Thank you.